14-year-old Sherry Lee Truesdale set out to run errands in June of 1970, but a department store became her last known stop. It's been 55 years, and exactly what happened to her that day is still a mystery. So today, for our last video of No Trace November, we are covering a disappearance case that I have wanted to cover for quite a while now, but the main roadblock that I hit was I did not think that there was enough information out there on this case to even make a video about it. When I originally started looking into this case, I saw that every database and source out there spelled this girl's name Sherri. Then, after doing a lot of research, I saw that on the missing persons page for the police department overseeing her case, they spelled her name Sherry with a Y. From there, I went to newspapers.com and searched up her name using a Y instead of an I, and I was met with more newspaper articles, photos that I had never seen before of her, and these articles were published closer to the time that she went missing. Since the police department overseeing her case spells her name with a Y, and so do newspaper articles that came out in the first month that she went missing, I am in this video going to be spelling her name with a Y. But if you've ever come across this case before, chances are you've seen her name spelled with an I. I just wanted to cover this real quick before we got into the video, because during the video, you are going to see screenshots and newspaper articles that show the spelling both with an I and a Y. With all of that being said, though, this is the unsolved disappearance of Sherry Lee Truesdale, the oldest missing persons case sitting at the Winston-Salem Police Department. Sherry Lee Truesdale was born on May 15th of 1956 to parents Ernest and Henrietta Truesdale. In 1970, at just 14 years old, she was growing up in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, living there with her family and navigating the everyday routines of teenage life. The image on the screen is the photograph most commonly associated with Sherry's case. It's a modest black and white snapshot of her, offering a glimpse of how she looked around the time she went missing. Her mother told the Winston-Salem Journal that Sherry was a bit of a loner who usually walked by herself to and from Anderson Junior High School, where she played the flute in the school band. She spent a majority of her time reading, and when she wasn't doing that, you could find her with a needle and thread because she loved to sew. The day that she went missing, she actually had a birthday party to go to later that day, and she was planning on wearing a dress she made by hand to the party. Sherry was quiet and hardworking. She consistently impressed those around her. She graduated 8th grade with above average grades, all B's and A's. Her commitment to learning paid off when she received a scholarship to attend Mount Tabor High School's summer enrichment program, where she would be able to explore and strengthen her skills in the fine arts. This program was set to begin on Monday, June 15th of 1970. 2 days earlier, on Saturday, June 13th, Sherry left her home at 527 Pitt Street shortly before 11:30 a.m. Her plan for the day was to hop on a nearby bus, head downtown, and run a few errands. These errands included going to Walgreens on West 4th Street to pick up some supplies for school on Monday, make a payment to her mother's charge account at Rayless Department Store, and pick up some donuts for her older sister Ernestine on Liberty Street. Sherry's mother watched her as she walked down the street toward the bus stop, her small shoulder bag slung at her side with $8 in it. Sherry's mother had no way of knowing that this would be the last time she would see her daughter. Sherry spent the afternoon downtown, where a neighbor youth saw her earlier in the day between 1 and 2 p.m. at 5th and Liberty Streets, and the two exchanged a wave. The final confirmed sighting came from a layaway clerk at Rayless who reported that Sherry made a payment to her mother's account around 4:30 p.m. She would have been given a small pink layaway receipt for the transaction. Based on the timeline, it appears she had finished most of her errands by then. What happened to her afterward has never been uncovered. Before Sherry left, her mother asked if she would be home by 3 p.m., and Sherry assured her that she would. The birthday party was at 6, and her mother simply wanted to make sure that she would have enough time to get ready. Sherry's parents, already growing anxious when she didn't come home by 3 p.m., decided to start searching for her. Despite the heavy rain that evening, rain so intense it caused flooding throughout the Winston-Salem area, Sherry's father and some friends continued looking for any sign of her. The group fanned out across the area, determined to find her. They walked through their own neighborhood and continued on to Happy Hill Park, checking every corner they believed a 14-year-old might pass through. Despite the heavy rain and rising puddles, they searched for hours, refusing to give up. When their search brought no sign of the 14-year-old, Sherry's parents went to the authorities. Sherry was officially declared missing with the Winston-Salem Police Department at 8:30 p.m. that Saturday. On the day she vanished, Sherry was wearing a blue shirt, light blue bell-bottom pants, brown loafers, pentagon-shaped aqua blue earrings, and a girl's wristwatch with a black band. The band was either plastic or leather. She also at the time wore her hair with bangs and in pigtails. At the beginning of this case, juvenile officer C.E. Crosby handled the investigation. For 6 weeks, the search for Sherry continued relentlessly. Crosby and 4 other officers looked into every tip, chased down every hint of a lead, and scoured the areas where she might have been. This included searching an entire area where another missing girl's lifeless body had recently been found, and interviewing store owners and cashiers downtown. Yet, nothing surfaced. No sighting, no personal items, not even a clue to suggest where Sherry had gone. Of course, when it comes to a teenager vanishing, the 2 main theories that always arise are that they either ran away or they were abducted. Now, no one believed that Sherry decided to run away. There were no signs that she was unhappy in her life, and had she decided to run away, why would she have spent her day downtown picking up supplies and using the money that she had on her to pay off her mother's charge at a department store? Anyone running away would have, of course, pocketed the money, even if it was a little bit, and used it to pay for things like transportation and food. She had $8 with her at the time, roughly equivalent to about $67 today when adjusted for inflation. Sherry is listed as an endangered missing, which makes you question, could she have been abducted? That is a very strong possibility. Unfortunately, though, no one has ever come forward claiming they saw her with anyone else or saw her being, say, shoved into a vehicle. There's just nothing to go off of after she left the department store. Sherry's mother stated she would never get in a car with anyone. I feel she was abducted by force. One short article published by the Winston-Salem Journal on June 20th of 1970 highlighted that 2 young Black girls in the area had been murdered in the past decade. They asked the question, could there be a killer in the Winston-Salem area walking free, and could he strike again? I do have to point out that online it states that her family believed she had possibly been swept away by the rising waters because it had been raining for days on and off by the time that she went missing. Now, I did look up the weather in local newspapers, and on June 13th, it stated a cold front was coming through the area, pushing rain, and that rain was expected throughout the day on Saturday, June 13th. In an article the next day, it stated that it had been raining on and off for about 4 days, but a lot of it came around 11 p.m. on June 13th. And this is when it rained about 3 inches of rain in a 90-minute period, which is definitely a lot of rain. The Winston-Salem Journal stated that there were no car accidents reported, but plenty of cars pulled over until the rain subsided, and basements in the area were flooding at the time. One bystander said that water in one area was 2 feet deep on the road. When it comes to my research, I was not able to find any interviews or newspaper articles showing that her family discussed publicly that they believed Sherry may have been swept away in the flooding. If you look up this case online, you will see that allegedly her family had a theory that she was swept away in the water, drowned, and no one found her body. But I cannot find any legitimate source to back it up that they ever thought that. Based on the fact that the Winston-Salem Journal quoted her mother as saying she believed Sherry had been abducted, it seems reasonable to conclude that this was their prevailing theory about what happened that day. Also, like I stated, the main flooding happened hours and hours after Sherry would have been making her way back home. Although authorities put in a lot of effort at the beginning to locate Sherry, her case was officially closed only a year after she went missing. The case was closed, but the devastation was far from over. In a Winston-Salem Journal article published on June 20th of 1971, so a year after she went missing, Sherry's mother started to cry, and she said that she didn't want sympathy. She stated, though, "If I don't find my baby, I'll never stop crying. I'll never give up." Sherry's father told the paper, "I can't seem to pull myself together. It's like a bad dream. I think about it a lot. It seems sometimes like it happened yesterday." Her family genuinely believed that something very bad had happened to her. Her mother said Sherry would have never done anything to hurt her, and her father added that if she could have made it home or called, she surely would have. Sherry's mother passed away in 1978, which was 8 years after Sherry went missing, and her father passed 3 years later in 1981. But the pain of losing Sherry was there with them every single day. Sherry's older sister, Ernestine, told the Winston-Salem Journal in 1998, when the department decided to reopen the case, that her parents spent their remaining years alive mourning. She said, "Mama cried a lot. We had a front porch where she could see the bus stop. Every time a bus would come around that curb and she wouldn't see her, she'd start crying." Sherry's family tried to go on in life the best that they could, but the sadness and overall confusion was always there. Sherry's case was reopened officially 27 years after it was closed. That is almost 3 decades with so much uncertainty and believing the department would probably never take another look at the case. When Sherry's case was reopened, they did produce a computer-generated age progression photo of what Sherry would have possibly looked like around the age of 41. The photo showed her with short curly hair and glasses. This photo was spread around with the hope that possibly if she were still alive out there somewhere, someone might recognize her and come forward with new information. That never happened, though. In this article, though, released by the Winston-Salem Journal, Captain Cliff Cranford stated that the thing that piqued their interest was a letter they got the summer prior, which would have been the summer of 1997, where someone wrote in and asked where the investigation was at that point when it came to the disappearance of Sherry Truesdale. The small accordion file containing her case details was eventually handed over to Detective Elwood Craven. After reviewing the information, the age-progressed image of Sherry was created and her sisters were talked to again, briefly bringing her case back into the public spotlight. At this time, Sherry's sister, Laverne, stated that if she were dead, you'd think that there'd be some evidence of that by now. But if she is dead, they just want to know where her body is so they can bury her and bury the memories. Detective Craven noted that when the case was reopened, he spoke with the detectives who had been on duty at the time she went missing. Unfortunately, nothing substantial had changed over the decades, and the investigation essentially restarted from the same point where it had ended back in 1971. It's deeply sad to consider how much might have been learned over the years if the case had been left open, or at least kept in local discussion, even just during the anniversaries of Sherry's disappearance. The lost time feels like a window of opportunity that will never be regained. 5 years later, another age progression of Sherry was released publicly. This one done by the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children and showed what Sherry would have possibly looked like at 46 years old. This age progression photo done 22 years ago is actually the last that's been produced for Sherry Truesdale. Based on my research, the next time Sherry's case resurfaced in the public eye was 10 years later in 2013, when it was featured in an article about missing children in North Carolina. Ernestine at this time said that it still hurts, and she doesn't want to die without knowing what happened to her sister all those years ago. There really is so little information about Sherry's case out there. There's only maybe 4 or 5 articles about it, but overall, she's only really brought up as an add-on when other cases are discussed, meaning they might cover one case from North Carolina more in depth, and then at the end mention other missing children from the state. That, or she will be mentioned in an overview of missing children from North Carolina. There's never been a lengthy news segment on TV or episode in a show covering cold cases or a billboard put up in the area that she went missing. I do wonder what could have possibly been discovered had her case been pushed more. We do know, though, that she has been ruled out as being some Jane Does. This includes a case that I covered before here on my channel, a case that I'm very passionate about. I'm still in connection with the main investigator on this case, and that's the case of St. Louis Jane Doe, a headless African-American girl found with her hands tied behind her back in the basement of an abandoned building in St. Louis, Missouri on February 28th of 1983. Randolph Jane Doe, an unidentified woman whose cranial fragments were discovered on May 28th, 1997 in a creek bed near a railroad embankment in northwest Randolph County, North Carolina. Isle of Wight Jane Doe, an unidentified young woman whose skeletal remains were discovered in the woods of Isle of Wight County, Virginia on January 16th, 2001. Also, Norfolk Jane Doe, a woman whose remains were found in an overgrown marsh in Norfolk, Virginia on September 10th, 2004. Without leads to follow and new information coming in, there's nothing really a team of investigators can do for a case like this. Her case is still considered open, but the main ones pushing it today are advocates online who bring up her case throughout the years, hoping that it will reach the right set of eyes, that someone knows something more about the minutes leading up to Sherry Truesdale never being seen again. Maybe someone saw something that day but didn't think anything of it and never heard anything about her going missing. Maybe someone has been sitting on a tip for over 50 years and they just never came forward because they didn't think it would amount to anything. What is known, though, is that Sherry's family has gone over half a century not knowing what happened to her, and the clues are out there somewhere. If she did die that day or soon after, her remains are somewhere, and they deserve to be found and given a proper burial. Sherry Lee Truesdale was 14 years old when she vanished from Winston-Salem, Forsyth County, North Carolina on June 13th of 1970. She is African American with black hair and brown eyes. According to databases, at the time of her disappearance, she stood at 4 feet 2 inches tall and weighed 75 pounds, so she was quite petite. She has moles above her upper right lip and on the center back of the base of her neck. Her ears are pierced. If you have any information regarding Sherry's disappearance, you are urged to contact the Winston-Salem Police Department at 336-773-7700 or the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children at 1-800-THE-LOST, which is 1-800-843-5678. You can also submit a tip online, and I will have that linked down below in the description of this video. I want to thank you all for taking a little bit of time out of your day to listen and learn about Sherry Lee Truesdale's case. Like with every single case that I cover, leave some love down below in the comments because you never know who might stumble across this video. Usually when I'm done with a case on my channel, I may say 1 or 2 sentences about the case. This might include a personal thought, but overall, I do keep my theories to myself because I don't want to make the video about me and my views. With this case, though, I do have to say that there were 2 things that I kept coming back to. The first one was the fact that it was raining on and off, and I was able to find a little bit of information about the rain that day and the day after, but I was not able to find out the exact times that it started raining downtown during that afternoon. This makes me wonder if possibly it started raining while she was walking to the bus stop and she decided to seek shelter somewhere. And then that is where something happened to her. I know that investigators were quite thorough when it came to questioning people downtown, but I wonder if they questioned every single person working at all of the stores that would have been on the way to the bus stop. Another thing that I thought about, and I did see that this was brought up on Reddit, I think, and that was her height. She was very petite for her age. She was 4 feet 2 inches tall, and as someone who was short for my age as well, there were a lot of people that thought that I was 3 to 4 years younger than I actually was. So I do wonder if possibly somebody did see something maybe from behind. They didn't see her face. I'm not saying necessarily a direct kidnapping, but maybe they saw something suspicious, but they didn't come to authorities about it because they were thinking that the child they saw was much younger than a teenager. These are just 2 aspects of the case that I kept thinking about. If you yourself have any other theories, or if you even lived in the area in 1970 and you have anything to contribute to the conversation, definitely leave those thoughts down below. This case, though, was our last case of No Trace November of 2025, and I would say out of every case that I covered this month, this case has the least amount of a trace. Next month is December, which is Docember here on my channel, where I cover cases of John and Jane Does. I'm pretty sure that I have most of my cases planned out for the month, but if there are any Jane or John Doe cases, this could be identified or still unidentified, that you possibly want me to cover next month or next year, make sure to send those requests over to gabulosiscaserequests@gmail.com. I hope that you all have an amazing rest of your day wherever you are. Stay safe like always, and I will hopefully see you next month in December.